Hello, my name is Clive Bock. I am the research plant pathologist at the USDA ARS location at Byron, Georgia, the Southeastern Fruit and Tree Nut Research Lab, where we do research on pecan production, particularly on the horticulture and pest and disease aspects of the crop. My area of specialism being plant pathology makes me the disease specialist at that location, and in collaboration with Dr. Lenny Wells and Angel, we have done quite a lot of work on diseases in hedge pruned versus non-pruned systems. And here today we have an example at the Jaros orchard of an orchard of cultivar desirable which has been pruned and trees which have not been pruned. And over the last 7 years, nearly 8 years now, we have actually assessed this orchard for pecan scab, which is the single most important disease in the southeast, on the hedged and the non-hedged trees. We have also done this in other orchards throughout the state, so we have a lot of data now on disease in hedge pruned and non-pruned systems. But before I go into the details, I would just like to describe a little bit about pecan scab, its epidemiology, how it spreads, and how that relates to disease control, and then talk about hedging and what the pluses and perhaps the minuses might be of hedge pruning in pecan orchards. So to begin with, pecan scab, the single most important disease here in the southeast, is responsible for not only very significant yield loss, but also for that significant cost of control of pecan scab through application of fungicides on a regular basis throughout the growing season. The combination of those two costs of yield loss and application costs amounts to millions and millions of dollars, sometimes tens of millions of dollars in Georgia alone, controlling scab. So it is a major limiting factor to the profitability of pecan where susceptible cultivars are grown. And of course, desirable is particularly susceptible, as are many of the other cultivars that are popularly grown in the southeast. In addition to that, the pecan scab pathogen is very variable, and there are instances of resistant cultivars becoming susceptible to the disease as well. So even if a resistant cultivar is grown, there is no guarantee that it will not, in 5, 10, 20 years, become susceptible as well. So pecan scab is a pathogen that begins the season or its infection in spring on the young foliage, as we see behind us here in this orchard. It is early May, and you can see the young leaves. These are susceptible. They remain susceptible as they expand, and once fully expanded, they are resistant to scab. The pathogen overwinters on the shoots and old shucks in the canopy, and the spores produced on those lesions on the shoots infect the young leaves when the conditions are suitable, and those conditions include rainfall and surface moisture, say dew after rainfall. The wind and the splash spread those spores onto the leaves. The infection takes. Those lesions then become sources of infection a little bit later in the season. After the fruit have been formed, the disease forms on the fruits, and as the season goes on, the cycles of reinfection from the earlier lesions can occur every 7 to 10 days if conditions are conducive for the disease to spread. That is, of course, in wet years or locations that are particularly prone to wetter conditions. Hence the need for the frequent fungicide applications. So the disease becomes an increasing problem as the season progresses, and if not treated, the fruit will be severely affected. The size of the fruit will be small, and also the kernels will be poorly filled, and the quality of the nut meats will be poor. And this is the reason why scab needs to be controlled. Traditionally, fungicides have been applied throughout the season. easily 10 and sometimes up to 20 fungicide applications are made in pecan every season. One of the biggest problems in trees as they grow taller is getting the fungicide up into the tops of the trees where the pecan scab can be a major problem, and particularly where it can also overwinter. So you have a source of inoculum in the tops of the trees that the fungicide applied through ground-based rigs doesn't always or cannot always reach. We've done a lot of research at the USDA ARS lab over the years on spray distribution, and what we found is that at about 45 feet in the canopy, and it does depend on season to some degree, in wetter seasons it'll be a little bit lower, in drier seasons perhaps a little bit higher, there is a reduction in the amount of spray that actually impacts the surface of the canopy. This means that spray coverage gets increasingly poor above about 45 feet, and you're going to have more and more disease. This is not because the equipment that we use to apply spray is inadequate by any means. We have very good orchard sprayers, the large orchard sprayers, of which there are several manufacturers that we use to control pecan scab and apply other sprays as well. But the problem is that the physics of pushing that air from an air blast sprayer against the still air in the orchard means that rate of that air blast slows down very rapidly. It actually slows down at an exponential rate with distance from the fan. And we've looked at air speed, and by the time you get to about 40 feet from that fan, whichever direction you go, horizontally or vertically, you're getting to the point where the wind speed is a small fraction of what it was at the outlet of the fan. And with that, of course, is the spray also slowing down, and it becomes more billowing and less likely to impact onto the surface and actually be of value and use controlling disease. So disease develops in the upper canopy even when applying using a powerful air blast sprayer. What about the option of applying through using aerial application? Aerial application can be very efficacious, reducing scab in the upper canopy of tall trees. However, if applying 1 or 2 or 3 sprays during the season, it's possible with air application to actually miss periods when scab is causing infection, just because when that's spread out over 2 or 3 months, the product is only going to remain effective for 2 weeks, and after that your tree, your nuts and your leaves are going to be susceptible to the pecan scab fungus. So the upper parts of trees, unless treated with the same frequency as the lower parts of the trees with the air blast rigs, are going to get more disease developing and also be a source of inoculum every season for the lower part of the tree. And this is where hedge pruning really does become advantageous. And behind me, on my left, is a hedge prune system, and on my right is a non-hedge pruned series of trees. You can see the dramatic shortening of the canopy on my left as a result of hedge pruning. And what we find is that with hedge pruning, you have a reduced amount of scab on average compared to the non-pruned system, taking the overall canopy as a whole. And that is because in the non-pruned trees, we have all of the upper canopy, particularly in taller trees. And these trees here are only sort of 50 feet high-ish, 45, 50 feet. And this is the point at which spray ceases to be totally effective. But as trees get taller, the difference is bigger. And many of the other sites that we've looked at have got major issues in the upper canopy. So by hedge pruning and removing most of those upper branches, you force the tree to produce more fruit lower down, where the spray is efficacious. It controls the scab far better. There is less of a source of inoculum above that can rain down on the developing fruit and leaves during the season. Overall disease is less in hedge prune systems compared to non-hedge prune systems. As a result, also, you can plant at a higher density in hedge prune systems compared to non-hedge prune systems. And I believe other work done by Dr. Lenny Wells has demonstrated the advantages in terms of yield quality and yield in hedged systems. But as far as scab goes, overall there is less disease. There may not be that much less disease in terms of statistical significance at any given height between the two systems, but because you're producing better quality nuts overall, because you do not have the source of disease and heavy disease in the tops of the trees that occurs in non-hedge prune systems, the hedge prune systems overall give better disease control. You do not have that proportion of nuts and nut meats that have been impacted by severe scab in the upper canopy of hedge prune trees. And therein lies the most important point here, is that once again, I will just reiterate it, in that hedge prune systems on average have significantly less severe scab compared to non-hedge prune trees, and this results in on average larger nuts, less severe scab, and higher quality nut meats. The alternatives of aerial application, as I mentioned, are there as well, but without the same frequency of application, they will not guarantee the same reduction in nut scab in the upper parts of the canopy. They will help, there is no doubt they will help, but they will not have the impact of reducing the canopy height and giving you that really efficacious disease control that you can achieve with an air blast sprayer in trees that are maintained at about that 45-foot height using hedge pruning. And over the cycle of hedge pruning, which may vary from anything maybe from 3 years to 5 years, depending on the orchards, the trees of course do grow in these systems with years after the hedge pruning, and as that happens, those branches do again gain heights that are going to be less effectively controlled by the ground-based rigs. However, overall the canopy is more open. The conditions, even here on my left, you can see the taller branches are fewer. They are far more open than on my right. This means that there is going to be more spray impacting the surfaces of these trees, and as a result, scab control is going to be slightly improved here on my left compared to a more dense canopy. The trees are going to be more open in the hedge prune system. The spray is going to gain access more easily. It's going to be able to get up into the canopy more readily. So overall, there is going to be better disease control in hedge prune systems compared to non-hedge prune systems. So as a management tool for pecan scab in cultivars or locations where pecan scab is a major issue, hedge pruning is certainly a valuable component of our management tools. If you should have any questions about this presentation, or questions about disease control, scab control in relation to hedge pruning, or any other questions in relation to disease control, please feel free to contact me by email, clive.bock, that is clive.bock @usda.gov. My office phone number is 478-956-6409, and I will be at the conference tomorrow, so please feel free to track me down there, and I will endeavour to answer any questions you might have. Thank you very much.